Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. It is Wednesday night, chill stream night. Time to kick off the old shoes and put your feet up, lay back, and just enjoy the nice 30-degree weather we have outside. Drink your favorite beverage and smoke a cigarette or a big old fat stogie or a joint and just relax. Have a good time. Talk about things that matter to somebody, somewhere. This is Untethered Live, and I am your host, Jake Johnson, coming to you live from the internet, right from my screen, right out through the internet, across the wires, and down into your room, and out of your screen, into your ear hole, right down into the crevices of your brain. It's kind of dirty when you think about it, but that's what we do here. Having a good time. Who's with me? See, we got some folks here already. Hello, folks. Nice to see you. Welcome to the show. We're going to talk about water and vibrations today, among other things. Quite possibly make some revelations, discover some new ideas. Who knows? I found some interesting videos, had some recommended to me by some friends, and we'll see what happens. Some of it gets a little weird. We're not going to watch all of some of it because it goes into territories I'm not comfortable with. But the main thing is water has memory. There, now you live with it. One thing I've discovered, on the weekend, on Sunday and Monday, I do this Bible study thing. The Bible talks a lot about water and vibrations, by the way. The first line in the Bible is, "In the beginning was the Word." That's a vibration. That's a spoken syllable, a sound. A sound is a mixture of tonal notes vibrating at a certain frequency to cause a sound. That sound can then be crafted into a word, and that word created the universe, spoke it into existence. The first thing that was created was water, and then God moved across the face of the deep and then formed the land, all with the spoken word, with vibration, with music. Water plays a significant role. The Bible also says in Psalms and in a couple of other places that the water itself remembers the creation, remembers God. Well, that's weird. How can water remember anything? Well, I'm going to show you tonight that it does. It does remember things. It not only remembers things, it retains information. Water, H2O, oxygen, hydrogen, oxygen. Two oxygens and a hydrogen. Had to think about my chemistry there for a minute. That simple molecule has life in it. The life is in the living water. Jesus said, "You drink from this well and you'll be full, but you'll get thirsty again. You drink from the water that I provide, the living water, and you'll never thirst again." Amazing. There's a second guy in the guise of God talking about water, doing stuff. You can't live. You can live for 40 days or so, maybe even longer, without food. Maybe a month or two without food, if you're pushing it. You can't live 3 days without water. You'll die. The rule of thumb is 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, 3 minutes without air. 3 seconds without the love of God. How about that? I added one. There you go. I don't know. But water is a fascinating thing, and we're going to talk about some of its properties today and see what some scientists have found out. And then we're going to talk about vibration, the nodal structure of chords, and how those frequencies form things that we consider to be beautiful, sounds that we consider to be beautiful, but also can be destructive, quite destructive, also can be creative, also can be annoying, can make you sick, can make you live longer. Depends on what you're doing with it. All beautiful things seem to have a double entendre. They seem to be capable of more than one thing, creation and destruction. Well, that's the dichotomy of life, isn't it? That's the yin and the yang, the up and the down, the good and the bad, the right and the left, the Pepsi or the Coke. Seems to be free will in a nutshell, is a choice. What is light without darkness? What is darkness without light? You have to have both. There has to be balance in the universe. The Chinese understood that thousands of years ago when they made the yin yang. They understood the light and the dark and the necessity of both to make the whole function. The Hindu understood it when they built the chakras, tree of life, that symbol, that shape. Maybe next podcast we'll get into shape because there's something there too, something wise and significant, something old and ancient, something wondrous. I can't quite put my finger on it. I can't quite articulate what I'm feeling, but I've put a lot of thought into it. Lots and lots of thinking has gone into this subject. And there's something to the shape of things, not things like, the car or the Tetris or whatever, but the molecular structure of things, the very basic. So right now, all we can see, the lowest we can see is a plank in measurement. A plank is a measurement of unit, and it's about the width of an atom, and that's about as low as we can get into it. But as we all know, as above, so below. There's that dichotomy again. That's why an atom looks like a solar system. They both have the same properties. Because no matter how far into the macro or how far out into the how far into the micro and how far out into the macro you go, it's the same thing, as above, so below. It's a fractal. It keeps repeating itself. I believe that when we get the technology to look further than a plank into micro world, we're going to find out it goes a lot further than we thought it did. In the 1800s, not too long ago, we thought that a cell was just a gelatinous blob. We had no idea what was inside of it, what all was going on inside of a human cell. They just thought it was one singular thing. That's where the term single-celled organism comes from, because that's what they thought it was. Only recently have they discovered there's a whole city inside of a cell, things functioning all over the place, working in tandem to make that cell function, which does a larger job to make a body function. It's amazing how finely tuned everything is, how perfect everything is, how exquisite the machinery is of life. And when you start to see it, you can't unsee it. It brings up implications, things that must be in order for this to be true. But I'm looking at it so it's true. As I said before, I can't quite put my finger on it. I'm still working on it. It's a problem that's plagued me for probably 10 years or better. Maybe longer than that. But there's something to the shape of creation. Just like with the vibrations of creation and the color and the feel, everything, the water. There's something to it. And there's a wise something to it. I just got to find it. When I can articulate it, I promise you I will. Might even write a book on it. Don't know. Might not be able to contain it in a book. In the old days when they were working on the genome project, hey, Diego, they thought that only about 10% of the DNA was functional and the rest did other things that, ran the body. And then there was a segment of DNA they couldn't figure out what it was for, so they called it junk DNA. Well, they've come to realize recently that that's not junk DNA. All that stuff has a purpose. It just doesn't kick on until it's necessary. And when it's necessary, then it activates. It's not junk DNA at all. It's perfectly within the design. There's no such thing as junk DNA. There are no leftover anything. Every part of your DNA is functional. And the more they study it, the more they learn it, the more they start to see it. And next thing you know, they're going to discover that not only is DNA functional, but it is a code that was written in 4 dimensions. Like we've got binary code that runs our computers. Everything you see on your computer is in ones and zeros. But DNA is a 4-digit code. It's 3-dimensional. That is fascinating. That is a programmer's wet dream right there. And when they discover it and they figure it out, they might even figure out how to decipher it. And if they do that, they will undoubtedly find the signatures of God, or at least his fingerprint. I think they already found it. They just don't know it yet. I hear a lot of talk about a lot of different things, but the base idea is we don't know why any of this stuff is here. That's the basic idea. Well, the reason it's here is because it was put here. Why? You tell me, and we'll both know. There is a reason, and that reason is in the book that we study on the weekends. And we'll get to it eventually, if we hadn't already passed through it several times. That reason is to have a relationship with and to love your Creator. That's the whole reason that all of this is here. That's why everything is a symbiotic relationship with everything else. There's not one wasted thing in the universe. Everything requires something else to survive. Not one thing is by accident. Not one thing is random or off to itself. There are no one-eyed creatures. Except the purple people eater. I think that's got one eye and a horn. But other than that, everything is useful. That's how you know that it's designed. Because if it were random, then there would be truly random things occurring. But there's not. Not once. Imagine what a universe of random chance would look like. Try to anyway. I don't think you can. But the idea is, why don't a square just appear right here on my shoulder? Why not? It's random. Could. Why don't the sky just turn black all of a sudden, or somebody just float off of the ground? Why does gravity always seem to work? Because it's not random. Because it's a design that functions. It's not only a design, it's a killer design. It's perfect. You can't find a mistake in it. I heard a scientist say one time, well, you know how there's proof that there's no God? Because the human body isn't perfect. It's got mistakes in it. I said, oh, yeah? You make one. Let me see what it looks like. He's yet to respond. Wonder why. It's because he can't make one. And he knows he can't. Ergo, it's not all that imperfect. If it were imperfect, it wouldn't have lasted this long. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is, that guy's full of baloney and doesn't know what he's talking about. But more than that, the opposite side of that is, there are no mistakes. Everything is perfect. So perfect that if it were moved in any direction, 1% or more, it would all fall apart. Couldn't function. If we were just a little closer to the sun, life wouldn't be possible. Just a little further away. If oxygen were 10% thinner, we'd have trouble breathing. If we could breathe at all. If water were harder to digest. We couldn't drink it. It's one of the rarest properties in the world to start with. It defies all logic when it comes to other liquids. It's the only liquid of its kind. And just imagine what the world would be like without it, or with different water. You know, they suggested at one time that we were going to have acid rain. That never happened because rain isn't acidic. It's kind of dumb if you think about it. But they tried to use that as a scare tactic, much like the things they talk about on the news today and freak out about, because that's the way they do. They also talk about quicksand. That's not a thing either. How many people do you know has ever died in quicksand? 0. That's how many. Probably never even seen it. Now, there is a such thing as liquefaction, and sand does function in weird ways when it's involved with water, but the idea that you walk off into the jungle and disappear in quicksand, it's just not a thing. It's just not going to happen. So, you have water. It's the first thing God created. Before he created anything else, he created water. The waters were in the midst of the deep being space, not the ocean. And then the land appeared. And then everything else was put on the land. But before he did that, he created the thing that we all need to survive, water. So, yes, it is, Diego. Media is a bad thing. It takes a lot of thinking to think your way out of a world carefully constructed and curated to conceive deception in your mind. And that's the whole point of it, is to deceive you. That's the whole point of everything, for that matter. From the time you're born, you have things, ideas shoved down your throat before you even have a chance to consent to it. And the reason for that is to deceive you. Because if you were really thinking, you wouldn't put up with a lot of the things that they want you to put up with. You wouldn't be able to. It'd be too much drama. And when you get to a place where you are thinking, you start to see it. Look at that. Can't believe they take that much of my money and don't do anything in return. They didn't work for it. I did. Look at that. I can't believe they require me to wear a mask in public when I know good and damn well that doesn't work. Look at that. I can't believe such and such. Well, imagine how many of those things are there, carefully placed right in front of you, like a smoke screen. And what's it hiding? Autonomy, sovereignty, freedom, liberty. That's what it's hiding. Because you were born in a liberous body. You are liberally free. God gave you the right to think and the right to make decisions for yourself. He also gave you the consequences of those decisions. So if you do good, you're rewarded. If you do bad, you get punished. That's how it works. Can't? Listen to Jordan Peterson talk about twisting the fabric of reality. You can't. If you twist the fabric of reality, it will inevitably snap back on you because you can't twist reality. And why should you be able to? Well, it may appear that you get away with your actions. Hey, 420. It may appear that you've gotten away with something just because you didn't immediately find a result. You know, you do something bad, you don't immediately get punished. Well, I got away with it. And that's a great tempter, isn't it? Tempts you into doing it because you think you can get away with it. You cannot. Not one person has ever gotten away with anything that I'm aware of. There's always something in the future that knocks their knees right out from under them. May not be the thing they did, but it is the thing that's going to punish them for what they did. Never fails. You do not get away with anything. Excuse me, Diego. I just recommended listening to Jordan Peterson. Don't tell me not to listen to somebody or anybody that I recommended it to. The reason I recommended it is because what he said made sound sense. Doesn't matter what he believes. He is not the arbiter of my future. He doesn't determine what I think or what I feel. But he made a salient point, and it's worth hearing. And I just retold it. So you, by extension of knowing me, just listen to Jordan Peterson. And I'm talking about water. That's what this is all about. You can't talk about one without the other. You understand? Life involves all of this other stuff. That's what life is. Where does it come from? It comes from God. How does he achieve it? Through creation. What is the first building blocks of creation? Vibration and water. That's what we're talking about. In a little while, when people get here, we're going to watch a few videos about it, and I'll show you my points. But yes, some people, even when they're in the wrong, can make good points. And in this case, talking about the twisting of fabric of reality, Jordan Peterson made a good point. No, I never said that Jordan Peterson rocked. I just said he made a good point. Oh, you said, did he rock? Look, when I read it, it looked like you said, don't listen to Jordan Peterson. He's just like Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins. I see where it is now. It's my mistake. I apologize. I can't hardly see the screen. Getting old. But yeah, Jordan Peterson has made some mistakes. I don't know if he's a guy you should follow, but you should definitely listen to him because he's a hell of a thinker. Whether he's right or wrong, he puts a lot of thought into it. He's one of the people that I have trouble debunking because he puts so much thought into the things he says. Yeah, I've thought about it, but Sam Harris is just a little flaky. I don't know. I don't know if he even makes sense to himself. I've listened to some of what I hadn't listened to a whole lot of Sam Harris, but what I've heard, I wasn't very impressed. But I might check him out, and if I find something that he's arguably wrong about, I will definitely do a video on it for you. Because I am looking for people to debunk, and I would like somebody that's, worthy of the challenge. It's kind of hard to sit through a video when the points are, like that last one we did. The guy was correcting himself. I didn't have to do anything. He'd say something and then realize how stupid it was. That wasn't very hard for me to do. Hey, April. Hey, sweetheart. How are you? Yeah, he does talk out of his butt. I've seen him on Joe Rogan a couple times. I didn't care for him. I tell you somebody I do like, though, and I could probably argue a good argument with, and that's that Weinstein guy. Brett, I think is his name. Brett Weinstein. He's a pretty smart fella. I might could debunk some of what he says. That's all right. We're just going to watch a few videos tonight anyway. Talk about water. We're talking about the fabric of creation. The necessary existence of water. It's really hard to articulate because there's a lot to it, but it's not very audible. It's not words per se. There's very little science into the idea. They have just started researching the fact that water has memory less than 10 years ago, and the guys that are doing it are still kind of looked at like kooks. They hadn't really been taken seriously yet. So it's not an established science, but it is a fact. It is true. Water does have memory. Water can contain information. And it appears to react to stimuli. That would be interesting if that's true. I don't know if that's true or not, but there's a lot of evidence that points to it. It's great to see you too. And 420 reminded me of a video that I had seen years ago. And the one I got, the first portion of it talks about what we're talking about, and then it veers off into weirdness. Starts talking about reptilians and Pleiades, aliens, and I'm not into all that. But we'll watch the first portion of it where it's talking about the water science and see what they say. Let's see how many people here. Maybe we'll get started. Oh, we got enough. All right, let's go down here and watch a portion of this video, shall we? I got to make sure that it's audible. Hold on. Yep, it's audible. Here we go. Check this out.
This is a water droplet that you're going to see. And in this water droplet, a frequency is being pumped into this water droplet. As the frequency is mirrored in the droplet, you'll actually see the geometric patterns in that droplet. Now what's happening, and the reason that this is so significant, is because we're going to do a frequency sweep. We're going to go from low frequencies to higher frequencies. And what you'll find is this. You'll see that in the lower frequencies, the patterns are less complex. And in the higher frequency, the patterns are more complex. So we're going through a sweep from lower to higher frequency.
Notice that I'm combining the two subjects here. We're talking about vibrations and the response that water has to it.
I'm sharing this with you now because Earth is essentially going through a frequency sweep. Our fundamental pulse, our base pulse that has hovered.
And would you get a load of this guy's hair? That's a magnificent mane he's got.
Around 7.8 cycles per second. Now is changing. And again, there's a lot of controversy about what the change is, and we're witnessing the change. As we go through our planetary shift of this pulse, patterns of energy must change to respond to that, just as patterns of energy in this water are changing to respond to this pulse.
Now this is a microscopic view of a drop of water that's on a slide. It's not being pressed down, it's just sitting on top of a slide, this drop of water. And they've got a speaker right beside it, and they're pumping vibration towards the water. And this is what the water does, and you're looking at it through a microscope, an electron microscope.
And we'll begin with simply the concentric patterns in the water. As the frequency begins, every once in a while we'll reach a key threshold resonance.
That music that you're hearing in the background is not the frequency they're giving the water. That's just background music. What the water is experiencing is a pulse of unaudible sound, like boop, 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 boop. You can see the water jumping to the vibration. So when that speeds up, you can tell when it's vibrating faster.
Such as that moment right there. And in that key threshold resonance, the entire pattern morphed into a more complex expression of itself, simply because the frequency changed. Now watch what happens. The frequency is still increasing. Now watch what happens. As we reach another key threshold resonance, this entire pattern will morph into a beautifully and more complex pattern of itself. Again, and again. And look at this pattern right here. Look what you're seeing right here. Look at the beautiful geometry. Here's a perfect cube. There's a perfect tetrahedron, a star tetrahedron.
He's wrong. That's not a tetrahedron. That's a dodecahedron.
In 2 dimensions, we've got the octahedron. Very powerful images of sacred geometry held in place simply because we've achieved the vibratory pattern that allows that.
And thus you can begin to see how God's voice spoke into existence all things with the vibration
in this water droplet. And as the vibration increases, these patterns will become more and more complex. You can see the pulse from where you are. Can you see the pulse actually in the water?
Isn't that magnificent?
As we go into the last set of the frequencies, what you'll see is that the entire, and you'll watch along the outer perimeter, the entire pattern reaches its greatest level of complexity and then it goes back. As the frequencies drop, it goes back to what it was, the concentric circles, as it was originally. It
Hey,
almost
Kev.
looks alive. You know, you've been offered many times the concept that thought is vibration. Have you ever considered that emotion is vibration? Feeling is vibration. We are always feeling something. We are always emoting something. We may not always be aware of what that is. We carry those patterns with us. As we hold a feeling and an emotion, what we're doing is we are holding a vibratory pattern in the liquid crystal of our bodies.
There's now been scientifically...
Now, you can infer an implication here. If water responds that drastically to vibration, to sound, to frequency, and we know that the world is swirling with all kinds of frequencies and vibrations, the very earth itself hums with a kind of excited travail. It makes sound. And we also know that our human body is about 70% water, liquid, H2O. Imagine what kind of effect those frequencies have on our human bodies, and how that may affect our brain chemistry, and how that may affect our heartbeat and our blood flow, and psychic things like emotions and connections that you feel with other people. And, you know, whether you believe it or not, the body does radiate an aura. Some claim to see it, some don't, who knows. But there is a energy around the human body that's perpetuated by the soul, I believe. Imagine how those vibrations alter these things and what that means about life. How it may be the very thing that sustains life.
shown to be provable. And what you're going to see now are what happens to particles of sand and other various particles when a sound resonates across a plate and resonates those particles in tune with the sound. Because when we think, we're not just sending out a wave which resonates the energy, we're sending out on a frequency outside of the range of human hearing, we're sending out a sound. Everything is sound. When we think a sound goes out, it resonates the energy around us to that sound. And what you're about to see are some pictures that show this happening when sound is introduced, and how sound takes random particles and turns it into astonishing form. And that's how this universe was created. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was sound.
Well, the
So
Word
what you're
was
looking
God,
at here
but He
is
made a
merely
sound.
particles formed into patterns by sound. They were all over the place to start with, just in random positions on the plate. As soon as the sound appears, they form into these patterns, because
Look at that.
everything is sound, and it is sound that turns matter and energy into form. Patterns on wings of birds and insects are all the manifestation of the sound vibrations. Every organ in our body resonates to a certain frequency. And when our thoughts and emotions and stress and the vibrations that causes de-harmonize the vibrational state of our various parts of our body, we become ill. We think ourselves into illness because we're affecting the vibrational state of the body. And so every time you think and feel, you're resonating a frequency which is making the energy around you resonate to the same frequency.
That pattern right there reminds me of the tree of life, or the sacred geometry that the Chinese talk about. You know, you got the dragon dog that's got his foot on the little sphere, and the sphere has these little shapes in it, and that's symbolic of the creation symbology. This is what that reminds me of, and this is done by a frequency blasting onto a plate that has sand on it. What you're looking at is sand. That sand is taking a rigid form because of frequencies.
What you give out is what you
That's
create.
not. That's a dragonfly with sand on it. I don't know why they put that there. That's misleading.
Here you're seeing mini galaxies.
That's
just
interesting.
formed by particles and sound. This is how the galaxies and the universe and the solar systems were formed and continue to be held in the structure they're in through sound. If the sound changes, the matter changes, the energy changes.
Look at that.
So when you look at what it says in texts like even the Old Testament, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was sound.
Again, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, but God made a sound. You got that wrong, David Icke. Get it right, buddy.
And sound is everything. When you think and feel, you're creating sound. This is how the heart beats at a certain resonance. All you're looking at here are interacting frequencies making a beat. And so while the frequency of the heart is at the right level, it beats in the normal number of beats a minute. But when we become stressed, we affect that frequency and the heart beats faster. And so everything is sound, even the human heartbeat, and the interacting frequencies that make it happen. And we've seen the galaxies, and now here are the planets forming, just on a plate from particles caused by sound passing through them. This planet has a resonant frequency. It's called the Schumann cavity resonance. But basically, while that frequency holds, the planet will hold its present form. If the frequency changes, the form will change. It's the same with everything. And here you see sound being passed through iron filings and particles, and therefore creating form once again. And from these pictures, it's hardly...
That's actually iron filings inside of motor oil. That's something he left out. I've seen this image before when I was looking at information about oil drilling, and they did a demonstration about the metal shavings that are in oil after it's drained out of a car. And that's what this is. Only thing is it's illustrating his point, because they run a vibration through it and it causes this to happen. The same thing, ironically, will happen if you use a magnetic field and run a magnetic field through metal shavings. You ever seen that experiment where they put like a graphite from a pencil, shavings of it onto a piece of paper, and then run a magnet under, and it shows the flux lines of the magnet? That's the exact same thing that's happening here, but in 3 dimensions.
Difficult to see how the human body is formed through sound resonating energy, and how that physical form is held as long as that sound matrix is held. But once that changes, the physical body changes. So there you've seen, with stunning effect, how sound creates form, how galaxies are created, how planets are created. And all those planets, balls of particles, all those revolving galaxies were merely particles turned into that form by sound.
Now, there's an implication there about the Big Bang, and how science has said that nothing exploded and then all this was generated from that explosion. No, because that's not how explosions work, for one thing. But more specifically, where did all that stuff come from? If nothing exploded, then there was nothing there. That means that there was no particles. And then you're telling me that when nothing exploded, it created particles? No, that's not going to work either, because mass has to come from something. God spoke it into existence. Who knows what medium he used? Who knows what particles or what type of fabric he fabricated to make this all possible? Nobody knows what occurred before God said, "Let there be." But one thing is for certain, it's made out of stuff. And all that stuff is vibrated into existence exactly like you just saw it happen, only on a much bigger scale and much probably faster. Who knows? I don't know how long it would take God to create something, but I would say it's probably pretty instantaneous. Or what gave him the idea to create all of this, where it came from, his imagination of it, who knows? That's if I ever make it to heaven and find myself anywhere near God, we're going to have a conversation. You can believe that, because I got some questions. I think that's it for this video. Let's see. There's a few little images that are fascinating to see. watch how that water dances. Alright, that's just nonsense. All you're going to see is a bunch of other stuff bouncing around. And then it gets into the reptilian aliens. There's enough of that. Let's see. Oh. Why, thank you. I can't take credit for it, though. I didn't write it.
The year is 1956. The place is a secret military laboratory for developing and producing weapons of mass destruction.
Ooh.
Work has been underway here for several years on a powerful new generation of bacteriological weapon. The scientists are discussing what properties this weapon should have at one of their protracted secret meetings. Suddenly, the session breaks off. All of the participants are taken to the hospital with symptoms of severe food poisoning. An investigation into what happened quickly hits a dead end. The scientists had consumed nothing except water from the carafes on their table. The water was tested. No harmful additives were found. Its chemical composition was H2O. And that's what the report said. Poisoning caused by ordinary water.
Imagine.
20 years later, a fantastic hypothesis was put forward. A hypothesis that could explain water's unpredictable behavior. Water has memory.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dr. Emoto conducted another groundbreaking experiment. He placed rice into 3 glass beakers and covered it with water. And then every day for a month, he said thank you to one beaker. You're an idiot to the second. And the third one he completely ignored.
I, for one, would like
After
to see
1
this
month,
experiment.
the rice that had been thanked began to ferment, giving off a strong, pleasant aroma. The rice in the second beaker turned black.
I, for one, would like to see this experiment done again several times, because there's many, many ways that this could have been altered. Obviously, this is subjective science. This isn't a be-all, end-all. But it does raise some interesting questions.
And the rice that was ignored began to rot. Dr. Emoto feels that this experiment provides an important lesson, especially with regard to how we treat children. We should take care of them, give them attention, and converse with them. Indifference does the greatest harm. It may not always be easy to do, and almost always it takes practice.
Wise words. Oddly enough, as I said earlier, our human bodies are about 70% water. That's the exact same ratio of the Earth and its amount of water, about 70%. So I think that's interesting, just for the coincidence. I love how they put these fancy CGIs on every scientific program. It's like they can't tell fact without having fancy CGI cartoons to go along with it. Yeah. We just watched part of that I didn't watch the whole thing because it delved into other topics that we're not talking about, but we got the important stuff. But this guy, Dr. Emoto, discovered that water, and we'll get into some more of that in just a minute. This is just a portion of it. But he discovered that water changes its molecular structure not only because of frequencies, but based on its environment, based on how it perceives what's going on around it. It's fascinating. You'll see in a minute. All right, there's that one.
To what extent is water capable of picking up information? What does it perceive? And how does it remember it over time?
The Aerospace Institute in Stuttgart has discovered a relatively simple way of making the structure of a drop of water visible. The researchers have had their efforts rewarded by insights into a very beautiful world. Each drop has a face of its own, unmistakable and unique. Why are the individual drops so different from one another? We got a lot of people to come to a lecture hall here at the Institute, gave them all the same water, had them make drops at exactly the same time, collected all the drops, and then discovered that each individual produced different images from the same water. And here you can see the results. Here on the right you can see that the images of the individual students are different, but those made by a given student are all quite similar. This is the work of the first experimenter, this one here from the second, this from the third, and this from the fourth. Individually, they can quite easily be reproduced.
So what he's saying is that each individual person, when they just were exposed to the water by using it in a syringe and putting it on a slide in droplets, that water took on a shape based on the person who was doing it. And it was different for every student. And no matter how many times they did it, that particular student, no matter where the water came from, it was the same. The water would change into the same shape for that student. And he's got slides that prove it. That's fascinating.
But you would never have thought that they were all from the same water, because when you compare the images from the different people, you see some big differences. Then we undertook experiments to find out whether things changed when we put something into the water. A real flower was placed in the water. A while later we took a drop of water, and here you can see one of the pictures. And you can see it in this picture. It's the typical image you get when you put a flower into water. You could recognize the flower in every single drop in this glass, of course. That can be reproduced and has significance. And if you were to put a different flower in here, for example, a Sweet William flower, then all the drops of this water would look like Sweet William.
Now, the individual drops of water are taking on an image that look like the image of the thing that was placed in the water. So it, in effect, is memorizing the shape of the thing that's in it. You know, when you pour water into a cup, it becomes the cup, shape of the cup. If you pour it into a tall basin, it becomes that basin. If you pour it into a pond, it becomes the shape of the ground. If you put water in space, it doesn't have a shape. But if you put something in the water, in distilled water, clean water, the droplets take on individual, like, images of the thing that's in the water. Brilliant.
The statement that water has a memory practically changes our whole way of looking at the world, of course. Let's travel down the Rhine in the figurative sense. The water is flowing down the Rhine, picking up information everywhere it goes. So the water has more information at the mouth of the Rhine than it had at the source. And the Dutch, living at the mouth, when they drink that water, they're also drinking all that information. Thus, the world's oceans would no longer be something that separates us, but instead a giant storehouse of information, and the rain would perhaps be a data medium carrying information to the world.
I'm not sure about that. I don't know how you could transfer the information from the water to a person. I don't think it works like that, but I think it probably could affect your health. It probably could affect what the water does to your body, but I don't think you could get the information out of it. I don't know how he sees that, but in a way it does connect us all because there's no new water. All the water that's here has always been here. That's a fascinating thought in itself, that the water doesn't come from nowhere. It's always been here. It evaporates and convects back down to the earth, but it's still the same water. Once it came out of the deep during the flood and settled onto the oceans, that water's been here from that point on. So everything that the world has ever experienced, that water was there to see it.
Welt.
There's no new material either, no new sand.
So now we're searching for the magic frequency. And we start with 100 hertz, and we look through the microscope to see if anything's happening. We watch for 5 minutes. Nothing happens. We try hundreds and hundreds of frequencies, if not thousands, until we find the magic combination. Because we believed there just had to be a better way. There had to be a better way. And we think we may have found it. I have here 2 identical tuning forks, both tuned to the note A, the note an orchestra tunes to. These forks are both made to vibrate 440 times per second. We say their frequency is 440 hertz. If I tap this fork, putting little pulses of energy into it, the second fork will also vibrate in sympathy. And if I silence this fork, we just may hear the other singing its tone. We say that I'm inducing a sympathetic resonant vibration in the second fork. It only works because both forks are tuned to the exact same frequency.
Now, this is something that Nikola Tesla spoke about, sympathetic frequencies. He built a little box at one point that vibrated, and he put it in the steel I-beams of a building and turned it on, and it started vibrating at a resonant frequency of iron, and it nearly brought the building down. I mean, they had to get rid of it in a hurry. They'd like to have destroyed the entire building just by vibrating this little box, because it vibrated at the same frequency as iron. Another time, there was a bridge built in, I don't know, somewhere in California, San Diego or something. It was built over this big opening, a ravine, and there was a steady wind that blew through that ravine, and it caused a resonant frequency, and the bridge started waving back and forth. You may have seen video footage of this because they caught it on camera, but it's black and white from a long time ago. But this bridge is going crazy because of the wind frequency, and it's just vibrating at the right moment, and it finally brought the bridge down. And they had, when they rebuilt it, they had to build it with different materials so that it wouldn't resonate with that frequency.
Now, many of us have seen this very charming young man on the internet who shatters crystal glasses with his powerful voice. But if you watch him carefully, you'll see that first he taps the glass with his finger and listens. The glass sings its natural resonant pitch. Then he takes a deep breath and sings a loud, long note. He induces a resonant vibration in the crystal glass. The vibration grows larger and larger and larger until the glass is shattered. On the other end of the scale, we have a giant bridge made out of concrete and steel, a suspension bridge, the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. Cars and trucks and buses are going over it every day. And unfortunately, where they built this bridge, there was a steady wind blowing across it. And one day this wind induces a small vibration in the bridge, hardly noticeable. But the frequency of the vibration matches the resonant frequency of some part of the bridge. And the vibration gets larger and larger and larger until the bridge collapses into the river below. A destructive resonant frequency. So on one end of the scale, we have a giant concrete and steel bridge destroyed by resonance. And on the other, we have a small crystal glass shattered. So maybe we could shatter something even smaller, something really small, something you would need a microscope to see. Maybe we could shatter a living microorganism. So maybe we could change a biological living liquid crystal with a special electronic signal.
Well, stop it. Stop talking about it and get busy, buddy. Time's a ticking, yo.
But in order to do that, we would need some kind of device. So we search the US patent database, and we find this invention by a physician, Dr. James Bear of Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's called a resonant frequency therapy device, and its purpose is to induce a resonant vibration in a living organism or cell. If I put in, say, 100 hertz, out will come 100 pulses per second. If I put in 200 hertz, we'll get 200 pulses. So now we're searching for the magic frequency. And we start with 100 hertz, and we look through the microscope to see if anything's happening. We watch for 5 minutes. Nothing happens. So we try 101 hertz. We look through the scope for 5 minutes, and nothing happens. So we try 102, 103, and so on. Over the course of 15 months, we try hundreds and hundreds of frequencies, if not thousands, until we find the magic combination. The answer is you have to have 2 input frequencies, one low, one high, and the higher frequency must be 11 times the lower.
That's called a harmonic, by the way. In the old traditions, they would call a stack of thirds the devil's harmony because it's uncomfortable. It's a dissonant sound. So if you listen to it long enough, it might drive you crazy because it's bad. It's a bad harmony, but it is musical. But when you put groups of chord structures together, you get music. Single chord structures, you get a note. You put 3 notes together, you have a chord. You put 3 chords together, you got a country song. And add some truth in there on top of it. 3 chords into truth, you got a country song. But that's how it works. That's how everything works, based on frequency.
It's what we musicians would call the 11th harmonic. And when we add the 11th harmonic, we begin to shatter microorganisms like a crystal glass. These are the first videos taken. We showed these videos to our friends in the biology department. They said they hadn't seen anything quite like it.
What you're looking at now is a single cell disintegrating under an electron microscope.
Seems to be a new phenomenon. These organisms are being shattered by our electronic signals. We now know that cancer is vulnerable between the frequencies of 100,000 hertz and 300,000 hertz.
Well, stop talking about it and get busy. Time's a ticking, yo.
So now we attack leukemia cells. Leukemia cell number 1 tries to grow a copy of itself, but the new cell is shattered into dozens of fragments and scattered across the slide. Leukemia cell number 2 then hyperinflates and also dies. Leukemia cell number 3 then tries to make another cancer cell. The new cell is shattered and the original cell dies.
Beautiful.
Original cell dies.
If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Nikola Tesla.
Five to 8 hertz frequency has been determined to be nearly the precise center of the entire electromagnetic color spectrum.
This is the last video I have prepared, so check it out.
There's only one number in the entire numbering system whereby the electromagnetic color spectrum is the same as the sound system. That one number is 528. Both the same in color and sound. 5 to 8 hertz frequency.
A miraculous key that opened doors that no man can close and closed doors that no man can open. 520.
That would be Jesus Christ that can open doors that no man can close and close doors that no man can open.
28. It will change your life in the most beneficial way. And now we have substantive evidence, massive amounts of evidence that is what 528 is. Ultimately, what has happened with this planet is that we are in dissonance to another note, another frequency. It turned out that when we discovered the original musical scale, there was not just 6, but a total of 9 core creative frequencies to the universe. That is, everything in the universe is made from 9 notes, only 9. And that the first 6 are the solfeggio, and then there's 3 additional ones that form a perfect circle of sound. And that perfect circle of sound looks something like this.
Or one could call it a circle of fifths. Every fifth note is a resonant frequency of notes that create a unique sound.
If you graph it. So the first...
Now pay attention to that symbology there. What you're looking at is a graphical representation of a circle of fifths. It's also the graphic representation of the tree of life and of a dodecahedron, which is the building block of the universe, and many other things, sacred geometry included, triangles and pyramids and all kinds of stuff in there. That's a very interesting shape.
6 notes, 396, 417, 528, 639, 741, 852 was the original solfeggio scale. The 528 that you can see on my left in green is the color green. It's the heart of the rainbow. That's the miracle note from the original solfeggio note.
Interesting that it's the color green. Geniuses pick the color green because it is a very resonant color. Also stands out among all the other colors as far as its properties.
From the original solfeggio scale. And the other note that you see, 741, which is part of nature, is called the devil's interval in musicology. That when you play 741 with 528, it creates such an annoying and dissonant energy, diseasing, stressful, that if you continue to listen to it, you could die. And so that the concept here is interesting. In the world today, we have people who are controlling virtually everything economically, geopolitically. Their agenda has been population manipulation, population control for millennia. They have held the secret knowledge, the ancient music, by which the pyramids were constructed based on the math. All of the universe is constructed according to these 9 tones. They knew about them. In fact, they instituted. In fact, it was the Rockefeller Foundation in 1939 that instituted the world's standard tuning. The Western world tunes to a 440 hertz frequency. That when you tune your instrument to that, the F sharp note is 741. Precisely.
The A440 is what now is the standard tuning. If you go A439, you're closer to one of the creator's tones. If you go A441, you're closer to one of the creator's original tones. That's how precisely it has been manipulated. To do what? To shut down the 95% of your brain, particularly the right brain that operates the heart mind to the divine.
I don't know if I agree with what this guy's saying, but it is true that the brain operates in waves of sound and frequency and energy. And those waves have vibrative frequencies like megahertz. So a theta wave, for example, has a specific frequency that's different than a beta wave or an alpha wave. And when you're dreaming, your brain goes into a different state that produces an even more unusual frequency. So it is possible to manipulate the brain by introducing outside frequencies. I don't know if people are doing that on purpose in the world, but it definitely is a thing that happens. Music itself can alter the way your brain functions. If you don't believe that, notice how certain songs can transport you to a memory or lift your spirit or give you excitement or energy. Certain songs can cause reactions. Some songs can make you sad. Some songs can make you feel love. Some songs can make you want to run around the block. Listen to AC/DC, anything, and you'll want to lift weights or go to do something. So music can alter your state of being. It's just interesting that he's saying that people are doing it on purpose. I don't know if I agree with that or not, but it's possible.
Human communion. Here is a metaphor so that you begin to understand what we're talking about. When you go driving your car and your channel on the radio is tuned to a station and you're grooving to the music, you love that music. As you get farther and farther away from the broadcasting tower, that music gets static. You start to lose the signal from the clear channel, broadcast, and it gets staticky. When it gets staticky, you get a little annoyed. But you want to listen to it. You really have a heart for that music, so you continue to listen to it for another 10, 15 miles, and suddenly it becomes so annoying that you just get disgusted. You go, ah, and you shut it off. And if you continue to listen to it, you get sick.
Nah.
That's what we're talking about here. Except you don't even know that you've been listening to the static your whole life. You don't even know what the true resonant frequency is because it has been kept from you. So in other words, the master composer, master conductor of the Universal Orchestra is singing love songs in 5/8, uplifting everything simultaneously. And we're the...
I wonder if the frequency that God used to speak everything into existence, I wonder if he has to keep it up for things to remain in existence. That's an interesting thought. I could see how when you vibrate something, it changes its molecular structure into another thing, but when the vibration stops, it goes back to its natural state. Kind of makes me wonder that if God said, let there be, or whatever utterance he made that caused everything to come into existence, I wonder if he has to continue that sound to make it stay in existence, or will it revert back to its natural state when he stops doing it? That's a very interesting concept to think about.
Only species out of tune and accepting static for the clear channel. Dr. Masaru Emoto. He goes
that guy again.
Up on stage and he has a triangular, a musical triangle that he hits like in an orchestra. He's hitting it over here. He hits it, bing, and about 30 yards or 30 feet away is his interpreter standing here with the same exact replica of that same size triangle. Frequency tuned to the same frequency. And he tells his interpreter to put a microphone next to it. And suddenly this one starts to resonate. He hits that one over there. This one starts resonating.
It's called a sympathetic
How much of your body is full of water? They used to say when I was at Harvard School of Public Health, The truth was back then about 86%, 86% of your body, well hydrated, was water. Today they tell us it's only 75%. Hogwash, they've been dehydrating everybody with the poisons. 93% of the function of DNA is light and sound reception and transmission. Photon, reception, transmission for intercellular communication and cellular upregulation. You know what cellular upregulation means? It means precipitation. In the now, every millisecond, instant second, you're remanifesting right now in water. Water is the most energy conductive of all of the materials.
That's a true statement. The soul is not contained inside of the body. The soul is in heaven. It's connected to the body almost kind of like Wi-Fi. Your brain is a receptor for that. In the Bible, it talks about it being a silver cord connected to whatever, which would be your soul. That silver cord comes down into your brain and you're plugged in. So you are, in fact, manifesting yourself every nanosecond. Because if you weren't, you'd go brain dead. Or if you lost connection, you'd go brain dead. If that silver cord parts, you die. It's as simple as that. So there's more to it than just the soul. It's the thing that's keeping you alive. And that silver cord itself could be vibration.
It's a superconductor. Let me give you the fundamental, the rudimentary origin of the numbers. Here it is. The most important numbers, 3, 6s, and 9s. Again, Tesla, who created a Tesla coil. Tesla coils, energy amplifiers. Your DNA is an energy amplifier, a coil, operating by the 3, 6s, and 9s primarily. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about,
those are sacred numbers in numerology. 3, 6, 9 is part of a certain sequence of numbers. You'll find it in pi. You'll find it in probably the Fibonacci sequence. I don't know exactly what those numbers are, but I'd say that those numbers are in it because they're in just about everything. And some people that have OCD real bad fascinate on those numbers because they find them in everything. 3s and 6s and 9s. You've heard people say that things happen in 3s. Well, they do. And there's a reason for it because that's a resonant frequency of the universe. Things often occur in 3s. Or 6s, or 9s. The number of man, 636. That's 666. These numbers are specific. A 9 is the culmination of a 6 and a 3. So, you see.
Probably looked at engines, or motors, magnets that have been wound with copper wire. When you do that, when you wind the copper, coil the copper around the magnet, it enhances the energy dramatically. That's what your DNA is. It's an antenna to the Creator. Every single cell of your body has this energy capability. It has this divine intelligence. What does that mean? That means the first entities that you should be communing with in order to uplift yourself, sustain yourself, heal yourself is the billions of cells in your body that have its own unique genetic intelligence, its own sacred spiral to the Creator. And so this is the structure of the way that the universe operates, which does fabulous for us, our understanding of some of the most wonderful pieces of information to allow us to live a faithful life. A life according to the law, according to the matrix. Here,
the law was given by Moses, that was given to Moses by God. That's the law in which we live. And that law was established for that reason, because it brought order to chaos.
Here is the simple way to analyze this. You've heard of what goes around comes around.
As above,
You've
so
heard
below.
of as you sow, so shall you reap.
As above, so below.
So this is explains it. Let's say that you're here and you are putting out negative thoughts, negative behaviors, negative actions. It's all energy. The neurology in your brain's powerful. 86% of you is God water. So now that's going out, and it goes out, and here's what happens. It goes out, it goes up and down. This is called the event horizon. You shoot down through the middle of the event horizon, which is the black hole, comes out and spins back around, ultimately comes right back.
Now he's just talking nonsense. Well, that's enough of that. There you have it, folks. The shape of water, vibrated by the awesome presence of being. Questions, comments? But before you do that, won't you please take a moment and hit that subscribe button. Press the bell icon so you get notifications of when I'm going to be here. Smash that like button. Smash it hard. Smash it a lot. Share this video with somebody you love. Better yet, share it with somebody you don't love. Bring them into the family. Make them part of the fold. Be part of their solutions, not part of their problems. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you're thinking about. Question me, curse me, bless me, challenge me, confront me, conform with me, drink my Kool-Aid. Drink your own Kool-Aid as long as you're thinking critically. That's what I really want. Critical thought coming from that brain of yours. If you love what I'm trying to do and you can see the value in what I'm trying to create here, won't you please contribute and help out? Help me pay the bills around here by going to paypal.me/JakeJohnsonBand. Every little bit helps. It's a win-win. It's a blessing for me. It's a blessing for you too, because God notices these things in a reciprocal universe in which we live in. I thank you for your support and your love and your confidence in what I'm putting out. And I hope to bring you many more podcasts with valuable information. And with that, I will continue by taking your questions and comments, rounding out this wonderful video. I hope that you found the information in here exciting and thought-provoking, and if nothing else, something to dwell on, something to ponder, something to put in your pipe and smoke, if you will. Maybe there will be some answers come from all of this. Maybe it's just a bunch of hooey. But maybe you just got a glimpse into reality itself. And as I stated earlier, don't try twisting reality because it'll snap back on you. You'll pay the consequences for that. Follow the rules. Follow the laws. Do that, and you'll always be happy and comfortable. But know the universe in which you live. Observe. Pay attention. If possible, articulate all of your surroundings, and you'll have a better handle on everything. Yeah, those are interesting videos, says 420. Yes, they were, and thank you for reminding me of them. It's a good podcast. I enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. Basically, we just touched the surface. We didn't really delve deep into it. I mean, we could really do a series on this particular subject because there's a lot about it, about the creation of the universe, about the Word of God, about all of the things in the universe and how they align together and why it's so important that these things exist. But this is just to get your tongue wet a little bit, just to dip your toe in so that you can think about it. See what it comes up. See if it brings anything to the forefront. Maybe it'll change the way you look at things. Eventually. Maybe not. Either way, no, I'm thinking about stuff like that. This is the kind of stuff that keeps me awake at night. Thinking about sacred geometry and the reasons for certain things in creation and how the laws interconnect, how everything is seemingly connected to everything else. It's fascinating stuff, folks. Isn't very conducive to a day job, though. You don't want to be me. You want me to be me, so you don't have to be. If you have any questions, I'd like to hear them. Maybe I can answer them. Kev, how you doing, buddy? Hadn't seen you in a while. Are you healing? Are you on the mend? 420, you got any more fascinating subjects you want to broach into? Maybe one day I'll do a podcast about the chakras and the tree of life, not the one in the Garden of Eden, the symbol, the tree of life with the dots and the lines. You know what I'm talking about? And other, the pine cone and the Eucharist and many other things. The caduceus, that's a fascinating interest. Amazing, says Diego. Thank you, sir. Love those videos. Oh, they're interesting for sure. Some of them get a little wacky, you know, and I don't care for that. But the basic idea of what they're talking about, I am interested in. I'll look for more and I'll email you. Yes, sir. Please do. You have a rebuttal for me. Let's hear it. You have one you want me to do, or you have one to me? Doing good, brother. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Oh, you're doing good, brother. Fascinating. I guess I skipped over it, and I thought it was in there. I did show that video, but I stopped it when he started talking about wacky stuff. I guess it was a little beyond that, but it's basically the same that we covered in the other video about how water takes on different crystalline shapes. Okay, well, let's hear it. What you got, Diego? Sam Harris Destroys Christianity is the name. All right, I'll listen to it. Show Diego's video. I didn't see Diego give me a video. What video are you referring to? Are you talking about that Sam Harris thing? I'll listen to it. If it's got some good points in it, I'll make a video about it. I'm not real fond of Sam Harris, but I will check him out. Yeah, I'll check it out, and if it's good, I'll put it up. It's got to be good though. I don't want to debunk any more guys that are doing it for me, like that Australian fella. The last one we did, it was too easy. That guy was a straight up moron. All right, I'll make sure to do that video next. Might do it Friday. Depends on if I get time to review it or not. If I don't do it Friday, I'll do it Wednesday. Well, I guess about half of you liked it. The other half dipped out. That's all right. You can't please everybody all the time. I've always said it, and I'll say it again. If I'm saying or doing something you don't like, wait your turn. I'll get to you. You're not going to like everything I say. You're not going to be interested in every point I bring up. You're not even going to agree with me. Hell, I don't agree with me 90% of the time. But his name is David Litwa. Nobody knows who he was. Are you talking about Sam Harris? His name's David Litwa? Interesting. Wonder why he changed his name. I mean, I kind of know. I understand the idea, the concept behind stage names, but you don't want your personal life getting involved in your professional life when you're a public speaker. But most of the time, you're either doing that for anonymity or you're doing it because you're hiding something, one of the two. Mine's easy. I just became my stage name. Now there is no other name. It's just that one. I used to try to keep it separate, but somewhere along the years it just kind of merged. Now we're the same person. I try not to put personal things on the internet. Oh, the guy rebutted. I got you. It got on my nerves. Yeah, he got on my nerves because he was a moron. He was debunking himself. He'd say one thing, and then 5 minutes later, he'd say the opposite. That's my job, dude. Stop it. At least focus on what you believe in. Yeah, okay. I got you now. Yeah, see, he was so unimpressive, I didn't even remember his name. All I remembered was he was the Australian guy that contradicted himself with every sentence. It sounded unsure of what he was saying. Here's a tip, folks. If you're unsure, don't say it in public. It doesn't bode confidence. It doesn't inspire confidence. It doesn't bode well for your followers. It should be nobody. Well, he's going to take care of that for you. He'll be nobody for sure. All right, boys and girls, we've reached the end of the class. I found it quite fascinating. I hope you did too. I hope you had a good time tonight. Mildly entertaining, if nothing else. I love you all with all my heart. I hope that you take a moment to observe the world around you and notice how fascinating it is, how wonderful creation really is, and how complex and interconnected all things really are. And just take a moment and be thankful for that. And while you're out and about, be kind to someone. Watch it change your life. Just something nice. It doesn't have to be a big gesture. It doesn't have to be philanthropic. Just do something for somebody in need, or do something to lift somebody's spirits, or make somebody smile, or just any act of kindness will change the fundamental nature of your life. Believe that when I tell you. I don't know that there are anybody that listen to him. Just because he has a book don't mean he's selling it. I mean, I listen to him because I gave him a fair shot, but I won't listen to him again. I can promise you that. Anytime you find somebody you're willing to listen to more than once, they got something going on, whether it's good or bad. Even if it's somebody you don't like, but still like to listen to, you know, they got some kind of charisma. That guy had zero charisma. Like yawn, you know. Anyway, enough about that guy. Come back on Friday and we'll do something else interesting. Something completely different than what we did tonight. Because that's the nature of Chill Stream. We just do whatever. Whatever comes to mind is wonderful. Have a great night. I love you so much from the bottom of my heart. Follow me on Getter if you haven't done so already. Hit that like button and feed Jake. Jake needs to eat too, you know. I've been a good dog. All right, enough of that. Get out of here. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for being interested. I'll catch you on the flip side. Have a great night.